The rain hammered against the windows of Harrington Tower in the heart of Manhattan as Victor Harrington froze in the doorway of the service corridor, his heart pounding with rage. There stood his son Declan, trembling in the arms of the janitor Axel, who was speaking in a calm, steady voice, trying to ground the young man from a panic attack. Victor shoved past a cleaning cart, the wheels squeaking loudly, and grabbed Axel's shoulder, yanking him back. "Get your hands off my son right now," he snarled, his voice echoing off the sterile white walls. Declan lifted his head, his eyes red and swollen from crying. "Dad, no," he gasped, pulling away from Victor, but stumbling as his legs gave out. Axel caught him again, steadying him without a word, his uniform shirt damp from the rain that had soaked through Declan's jacket earlier. Victor had come down to check on a late-night report from his security team, but nothing prepared him for this sight, his only son, the heir to a billion-dollar tech empire, clinging to a nobody in a gray jumpsuit. "Who the hell are you?" Victor demanded, his fists clenched at his sides. Axel straightened to his full height, a solid 6 feet, with dark hair, cropped short, and kind brown eyes that held no fear. "My name is Axel Kane, sir. I work maintenance on this floor. I found Declan here about 20 minutes ago. He was having a hard time breathing, and I stayed to help." Victor laughed bitterly, a short, harsh sound. "Help? You think touching my son is helping you? Are fired? Pack your things and get out before I call security to drag you." Declan stepped between them, his hands shaking, but his voice firmer than Victor had heard in months. "He saved me, Dad. I was on the roof earlier thinking about ending it all, and Axel talked me down. He has been checking on me for weeks after he saw me crying in the stairwell." Victor felt the world tilt, his expensive leather shoes suddenly feeling too tight. "Weeks? You have been seeing this man for weeks, and you never told me." Declan wiped his face with the back of his hand. "Because you would react exactly like this. You never listen, you only command." Axel stood quietly, his hands at his sides, respectful, but not cowering. "Sir, I don't want any trouble. I just care that Declan is okay." Victor pointed at the door. "No." Axel nodded once and walked past them, his footsteps soft on the marble. Declan watched him go, then turned to his father, the pain in his eyes cutting deeper than any words. "You just fired the only person who has ever really seen me." Victor stood there alone in the corridor, the rain still pounding outside as the weight of his son's words settled like lead in his chest. He had built an empire on instinct and control, but tonight that control had cracked wide open. The next morning in the penthouse overlooking Central Park, Victor paced the marble floors, his phone pressed to his ear. "Find out everything about Axel Kane," he ordered his head of security. "Every detail." Declan sat at the long glass dining table, pushing eggs around his plate untouched. "You can't control everything, Dad," he said quietly. Victor stopped pacing. "I am trying to protect you." "From what? From people who want to take advantage." Declan stood up, pushing his chair back with a scrape. "Axel has nothing to gain from me. He works 2 jobs and volunteers at a shelter. He lost his own family when he came out at 19. Victor waved a hand, dismissing it. "That is his story, not yours." Declan shook his head. "It is my story, too. I am gay, Dad. I have been for years, and I have been dying inside trying to be the son you want." The words hung in the air like smoke. Victor felt his throat close. He had suspected but never faced it head-on. The silence stretched until Declan walked out, slamming the door behind him. Victor sank into a chair, his empire suddenly feeling empty. He picked up his phone again. "Make it quick," he said, but deep down he wondered if he was already too late. Victor stared at the report his security team had delivered by noon, the pages crisp and full of facts that twisted his stomach. Axel Kane, 32 years old, born in a small town in Ohio, kicked out by his parents the day he told them he was gay. Moved to New York with nothing, worked construction, then cleaning jobs, put himself through community college nights for a psychology degree, but never used it because bills came first. No criminal record, no debts, just a quiet life in a Brooklyn walk-up and weekends volunteering at an LGBT youth center, helping kids who felt lost the same way he once did. Victor closed the folder, his fingers pressing hard enough to leave marks on the paper. He had fired a man who had pulled his son back from the edge, yet all he could feel was anger that this stranger knew Declan better than he did. In the living room, Declan packed a small bag, his movements deliberate. "I am staying with a friend for a few days," he said, not looking up. Victor crossed his arms. "We need to talk about this." Declan zipped the bag. Talking means listening, Dad, and you only hear what fits your plan. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Victor alone with the city hum below. That afternoon, Victor drove himself to the youth center in Chelsea, the address from the report. He parked across the street, watching through the glass windows as Axel moved among teenagers, handing out snacks, listening to stories, nodding with that same steady calm from the night before. One boy no older than 18 hugged Axel tight, and Victor felt something shift in his chest, a crack in the armor he had worn for decades. He did not go inside. Instead, he sat in his car until the sun dipped low, remembering the day Declan was born, how he had sworn to give him everything money could buy. Now he wondered if he had given nothing that mattered. Back at the tower, Victor called his ex-wife, the one who had left after years of his absences. She answered on the second ring, her voice tired. "What now, Victor?" He told her everything, the janitor, the panic, the confession. She sighed. "You never saw him, Victor. Declan tried to tell you in high school, with the withdrawn grades, the fights you called rebellion. You pushed him harder." Victor gripped the phone. "I was building a future for him." She laughed softly, no joy in it. Future without a father in it. He hung up the call, his reflection in the dark window, showing a man who looked older than 55. That night, Declan did not come home. Victor drove to Axel's building in Brooklyn, the streets narrow and lined with brownstones. He knocked on the door, number 4B, and Axel opened it, wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans, his expression surprised but not hostile. "Mr. Harrington, is Declan here?" Victor asked, his voice rough. Axel stepped aside. "He was, but he left an hour ago to clear his head. Come in if you want." The apartment was small, but clean, books stacked on shelves, a guitar in the corner, photos of smiling kids from the center on the fridge. Victor sat on the edge of the couch, feeling out of place in his tailored suit. "Why did you help my son?" he asked. Axel leaned against the counter. "Because I have been where he is. Alone, scared that the world would crush me for who I am. I saw him on the roof that night, and I could not walk away." Victor looked at his hands. "I've fired you." Axel shrugged. "Jobs come and go. People do not." The honesty hit Victor like a wave. He stood up. "If you see Declan, tell him I want to talk." Axel nodded. "I will." Victor left the building, the night air cool on his face, realizing for the first time that his money could not buy the kind of peace Axel carried so easily. The days blurred into arguments and silence, Declan returning home, only to argue about therapy, about coming out publicly, about everything Victor had ignored. One evening, Declan burst in after a long day, his face pale. "I saw Axel today at the park. He listened when I could not stop shaking." Victor felt jealousy, sharp and unexpected. "I can listen too." Declan shook his head. "You command, Dad." Axel just is there. Victor spent that night in his study, staring at old photos of Declan as a boy, laughing at the beach before the empire swallowed every weekend. He picked up the phone and called the youth center, asking to speak with the director. The next morning, he wrote a check, a large one, for their programs, but he knew it was not enough. He needed to face the man he had judged without knowing. Victor arrived at the youth center, unannounced, the morning sun streaming through the large windows, painting the room in warm gold. The director, a woman named Maria, greeted him with a firm handshake. "Axel mentioned you might come by." Victor shifted, uncomfortable in the casual space. "I want to understand what he does here." Maria led him to a back room where Axel sat with a group of teens sharing stories, his voice steady and kind. Victor watched from the doorway, unseen, the way Axel leaned into a girl who had just come out to her parents, the way he said, "I am proud of you," without any agenda. Later in the hallway, Axel spotted him. "Mr. Harrington." Victor cleared his throat. "Call me Victor." They walked outside to a small courtyard. "I read your file," Victor said. Axel smiled faintly. "Most people do not bother." Victor stopped walking. "I judged you without knowing anything." Axel looked at him directly. "That is what fear does. It makes us see threats instead of people." Victor felt the words land heavy. "My son is struggling, and I have been blind." Axel nodded. "Declan is strong, but he needs space to figure out who he is without the weight of your expectations." They sat on a bench, the city noise distant. Axel shared pieces of his own life, the night his father threw his clothes on the lawn, the years of sleeping on friends' couches, the decision to help others so no one felt as alone as he had. Victor listened without interrupting for the first time in years. That evening at dinner, Declan joined him, the tension still thick but less sharp. "I talked to Axel today," Victor said, passing the salad. Declan raised an eyebrow. Victor set his fork down. "He is a good man." Declan studied his father, searching for sarcasm, but finding none. "He saved my life, Dad, more than once." Victor reached across the table, his hand hesitant. "I want to fix this." Declan took the hand briefly. "Then start by believing me." The week unfolded with small steps. Victor attending a family therapy session where the counselor gently pointed out years of emotional distance. Declan opened up about the pressure, the fear of disappointing the man who built everything from nothing. Axel stayed in the background, texting Declan encouragement but never pushing. One afternoon, Victor found Axel at the tower entrance, now rehired, quietly after Victor reversed the firing. "Thank you," Victor said simply. Axel wiped his hands on a rag. "Just doing what is right." Victor watched him walk away, the janitor who had more wisdom than most executives he knew. But old habits died hard. When a board member mentioned a rumor about Declan and the janitor, Victor shut it down, but inside doubt flickered. He hired a private investigator again, this time to watch Axel, not for dirt but for proof that the help was genuine. The report came back clean. Axel spending evenings at the center, helping Declan practice breathing exercises after attacks, nothing more. Victor tore the pages, feeling ashamed. That night he drove to Brooklyn again, knocking on Axel's door. Axel opened it, holding a mug of tea. "Come in." They sat at the small table. "I keep waiting for you to want something," Victor admitted. Axel laughed softly. "I want Declan to be happy." "That is it." Victor looked around the simple room, the books, the guitar. "You have built a life without all this money." Axel nodded. "And it is enough." The conversation stretched late, Victor sharing his own regrets, the wife who left, the son who almost slipped away. When he left the building, the stars above Brooklyn seemed brighter. Declan waited up at the penthouse. "Where were you?" he asked. "Talking to Axel," Victor replied. Declan smiled for the first time in weeks. "Good start, Dad." The anniversary of Declan's mother's death fell on a rainy Thursday, the kind of day that made the city feel smaller. Victor stood in the living room, holding a photo of the three of them at Declan's graduation, his late wife smiling proudly. Declan entered dressed in black, his eyes distant. "She would have understood me," he said quietly. Victor set the photo down. "I am trying to." They drove to the cemetery together, the silence heavy until Declan spoke. Axel lost his mom young, too. She was the only one who accepted him before she passed. Victor gripped the wheel tighter. "I want to meet him properly, not as the man I fired." Declan glanced over. "He is not a project, Dad. He is a friend." At the grave, they stood under umbrellas, the rain tapping softly. Declan placed flowers and whispered words Victor could not hear. On the way back, Declan asked to stop at the park. Axel was already there on the bench under a tree, waiting as they had planned. Victor approached slowly, the grass wet under his shoes. Axel stood. "Hello, Victor." They sat, the three of them, the rain easing to a drizzle. Axel shared a memory of his own mother baking cookies on tough days, the simple act that kept him going. Declan listened, leaning forward. Victor felt the walls inside him crumble further. "I never knew how to talk about feelings," he admitted. "My father taught me to work hard, not to feel." Axel looked at him. "Feelings are work, too." The conversation turned to the future Declan, wanting to study counseling, inspired by Axel's path. Victor offered to fund it, but Declan shook his head. "I need to do this on my own terms." Axel nodded approval. Victor watched the exchange, the easy respect between them, and felt a pang of envy mixed with pride. Back home, Victor cleared space in his schedule for the first time, canceling meetings to attend a session at the youth center. He listened to stories from the teens, one boy talking about being kicked out, another girl hiding her identity at school. Axel facilitated with quiet strength. Afterward, Victor pulled Axel aside. "You have a gift." Axel shrugged. "Just paying forward what I needed." That night, Victor cooked dinner himself, a simple pasta, the kitchen filling with smells he had not created in years. Declan ate with him, laughing at a story from Victor's college days. For a moment, the penthouse felt like a home. But the outside world pressed in. A tabloid caught wind of the janitor, and the air a blurry photo from the park sparking whispers at the tower. Victor faced the board the next day, their questions sharp. Is your son involved with a cleaning staff? Victor stood tall. My son is involved with living his life. The meeting ended in stunned silence. Victor drove to Axel's apartment after the confrontation, the city lights blurring past. Axel opened the door, sensing the storm. They talked for hours, Victor, pacing, then sitting, the weight of public eyes heavy. Axel listened, then said softly, You cannot control what they think, but you can control how you stand by him. Victor left with a new resolve, the janitor who swept floors, teaching the billionaire how to stand tall. Declan vanished after a heated argument with Victor about going public with his identity, the words still ringing in the penthouse. I'm not ready, Dad. You never will be if I keep shielding you. Declan stormed out, phone off. Victor called Axel immediately, his voice urgent. Have you heard from him? Axel met him at the park, the bench now familiar. Not yet, but I have an idea where he might go. They searched together the streets of Chelsea, the youth center, the quiet corners of the city, Axel, knowing the hiding spots from his own dark days. Hours later, they found Declan on a bench near the river, his eyes swollen from crying. Axel approached, first sitting beside him. Hey? Declan leaned into the shoulder, the relief visible. Victor stood back, watching the scene, his heart aching. I thought I lost you, he said, finally joining them. Declan looked up. I needed space. They walked along the water, the city skyline glowing across the river. Axel shared a story of his own disappearance after coming out, the fear that swallowed him until a stranger offered a meal. Victor listened, absorbing the lesson. Back at the penthouse, the three sat in the living room, the conversation turning deep. Victor admitted his fear of losing the empire, his legacy tied to control. Declan spoke of the pressure, the constant feeling of not being enough. Axel added quietly, Strength is in choosing your path, not the one laid for you. The night ended with Victor ordering pizza, the simple act feeling revolutionary. The next day, Victor visited the center again, this time participating in a group talk, sharing his mistakes as a father. The teens listened, some nodding in recognition. Axel watched with a small smile. Later in the office, Victor rehired Axel, officially with better pay, but Axel refused the raise. I like the work. Victor respected it. Rumors swirled, but Victor faced them head-on at a company town hall. My son is gay, and he is brave for owning it. The room fell silent, then a few claps started growing. Declan watched the live stream from home, tears in his eyes. That evening, the three met for dinner at a quiet restaurant, Axel, in a button-down shirt, looking out of place but comfortable. Victor raised a glass. To new beginnings. Declan smiled. To real ones. Axel clinked his glass. The bond grew, the misunderstandings fading as Victor learned to ask questions instead of give orders. But one final test loomed, a public event where Declan would speak about mental health inspired by his journey. The gala for the youth center filled the grand ballroom of a downtown hotel, chandeliers sparkling over tables of influential guests. Declan stood backstage, his hand shaking, Axel beside him offering quiet words. You have this. Victor watched from the audience, his tie feeling too tight. When Declan stepped to the podium, the room hushed. I almost did not make it, he began, his voice steadying as he spoke of the roof, the panic, the friend who saved him. He did not name Axel, but glance his way. Victor felt pride swell, mixed with regret for every missed moment. After the speech, guests mingled, Victor introducing Declan with a hand on his shoulder. Axel stood nearby in a simple suit Maria had lent him. A board member approached Victor, whispering, Is that the janitor? Victor smiled. That is the man who saved my family. The night progressed smoothly until an old acquaintance cornered Declan, questioning his choices loudly enough for nearby ears. Axel stepped in calmly. Respect goes both ways. The man backed off, but the tension lingered. Later in a side room, Victor found Declan breathing hard, Axel guiding him through the attack. Victor joined, kneeling beside them. I am here. The three stayed until the breathing, even Declan looking up with gratitude. You both are. Back home, Victor poured drinks, the city lights twinkling below. He turned to Axel. I owe you more than I can say. Axel shook his head. Just be the father he needs. The conversation deepened, Victor revealing the emptiness of his success the nights alone after his wife left. Axel shared the letter he wrote to his parents that went unanswered. Declan listened, then spoke. We can build something new together. The next morning, Victor woke early, driving to Brooklyn with coffee for Axel. They sat on the stoop talking about nothing and everything, the sun rising over the rooftops. Victor felt lighter, the weight of years lifting. But Declan faced another hurdle, a job interview, where his last name opened doors, but his honesty about his journey tested them. He returned home excited, the offer in hand. I got it on my terms. Victor hugged him, the embrace awkward but real. Axel joined for celebration, the table full of takeout and laughter. The misunderstandings of the past felt distant, replaced by a fragile but growing trust. Victor began volunteering at the center one evening a week, the billionaire in rolled sleeves, helping serve meals, listening to stories that mirrored his son's. Axel worked beside him, their conversations turning personal. I never thought I would learn from someone I once looked down on, Victor admitted. Axel passed a tray. We all have lessons. Declan thrived in his new role at a small counseling nonprofit, coming home with stories that lit his face. One weekend, the three took a trip to the Hamptons, the beach house quiet and open. They walked the shore, Declan and Axel ahead, Victor trailing, watching the easy friendship. I was wrong about so much, he said, catching up. Declan turned. But you are changing. That night around a fire pit, Axel spoke of forgiveness, the kind he was still working toward for his family. Victor nodded. I want to earn yours too. The days blended into growth, Victor reducing his hours at the tower, delegating more, spending evenings with Declan and Axel. A crisis hit when Declan's old anxiety flared during a public talk. Axel and Victor, both there supporting him through it. Afterward, Declan said, I could not have done this without you both. Victor felt the words heal something deep. At the center of fundraiser, Victor spoke publicly, thanking Axel by name, the room applauding, the janitor, who became family. Axel stood humble. This is what community does. Back in the city, Victor helped Axel with small project renovating the center lounge, his hands learning tools he had never touched. The physical work felt good, the sweat and laughter bonding them further. Declan watched with a smile. You two look like old friends. Victor realized the truth, his wealth had isolated him while Axel and Declan had shown him connection. One evening, Victor sat with his ex-wife over coffee, sharing the changes. She smiled. I am proud of you. The journey continued, small steps building to bigger ones, Victor attending pride events beside Declan and Axel, the crowds vibrant and accepting. The family dinner in the penthouse marked a full circle, the table set for 3 candles flickering soft light over plates of home-cooked food Victor had prepared with help from a recipe app. Declan laughed at a story Axel told about his first day on the job, slipping on a wet floor. Victor joined in the sound, foreign but welcome in his own home. As dessert arrived, Victor set down his spoon. I spent years chasing success, thinking it would fill the holes. You both showed me it never could. Axel nodded. And I learned not every powerful man is closed off. Declan raised his glass. To the family we choose. The evening stretched with stories, plans for the future, Declan moving into his own place, but staying close, Axel considering a full-time role at the center with Victor's support. They walked the city streets afterward, the three side by side, the sun setting in gold over the skyscrapers. Victor felt whole for the first time, the man who had everything now understanding what mattered. Axel and Declan talked quietly about a new project helping more youth, Victor listening with pride. At the park bench, they paused, the same one where it all began. Victor turned to them. Thank you for saving me too. The night ended with hugs, genuine and warm. Victor stood on his balcony later, the city alive below, knowing the journey was ongoing but the path clearer. True or false, the people society deems least likely to save us often turn out to be the ones who rescue us from ourselves.